Hi. Wednesday, March the 8th, 1978. I was 13 years old and I was listening to the radio late at night, which I used to do before I went to sleep, and this very strange program came on the radio and I really enjoyed it. Next day I went into school and I can remember talking to somebody else who said, "Did you hear this weird thing on the radio last night?" And I had, and it was the Hitch Hiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which became a huge success on radio, which is my first love of it, but also books, and there's a movie and TV show and so on. What on earth has that got to do with logic? In that first episode, there was a thing introduced called a Babel fish. Now, a Babel fish, I'll give you a bit of background if you don't know it. It's completely fictional, of course. A Babel fish is a fish that you put in your ear and it translates automatically for you from any language to any other language. And this is obviously a device that Douglas Adams used to get around the problem of different species talking to each other. And he does it by telepathic brainwave transmutation or something. So it's a completely ridiculous thing, and it was in the very first episode that I heard all those years ago. I wanted to say it's 27, but it's 37 years ago now. Okay, what has that got to do with anything? Well, there's this bit of text where the Babel fish is used as the proof of the non-existence of God. And what does that mean? Well, there's this bit of text. It says, "I refuse to prove that I exist, says God, for proof denies faith, and without faith I am nothing. But, says man, the Babel fish is a dead giveaway, isn't it? It could not have evolved by chance. It proves you exist, and so therefore, by your own arguments, you don't. QED. Oh dear, says God, I hadn't thought of that, and promptly vanishes in a puff of logic." So what I want to do in this lecture is to examine whether God is right to disappear. How can we formalise this into propositional logic in a way that might or might not make sense, and what can we conclude from that? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use the following propositional letters: E, P, F, B and C. Now it's important when you write down formalizations of any English statement into logic that you say clearly what your terms mean. So that's what I've done on this slide. I've said E means God exists, P means there is a proof, F means there is faith, B means the Babel fish exists, and C means living beings evolved by chance. So let's formalise the English that we had a couple of slides ago into logic. So what I've got on this slide, on the left we've got the English, and on the right we've got the logical version of it. So let's just go through these lines. So the first line is proof denies faith. I've interpreted that to mean that P implies not F. Now, an interesting thing here is that for the second line, I've actually added a statement because it's not in the original that you've seen, but I think we kind of agree that it's true, and it's a key part of the argument. So I've added this. If there is a proof, then God exists. So I've said P implies E. If there's a proof, God exists. Without faith, I am nothing. Well, since God is talking, I'm saying that this means that not F implies not E. If there's no faith, then God does not exist. The Babel fish is a dead giveaway. That's just saying the Babel fish exists. So I've said B. It could not have evolved by chance. So B implies not C. And therefore it proves you exist, which is not C implies P, i.e. the fact that it didn't evolve by chance means there is a proof of God. Now, I'm not saying this is the only way to encode this set of statements into logic, and it definitely is not. But, this is the way I happen to have encoded it on this occasion. Right. Now, possibly the oldest logical law in existence is modus ponens. If I know P, and if I know P implies Q, then I know Q. And actually that's all we need to deduce the non-existence of God. So, what I've done now, I've got the statements 1 to 6 from the slide a couple of slides ago. P implies not F, P implies E, not F implies not E, B implies not C, and not C implies P. And I'm going to give a proof in a moment. So, the proof goes, line 7 is I can deduce not C, and that is by applying modus ponens to statements 4 and 5. B and B implies C, not C, implies that not C is true. Statement 8 is modus ponens from statement 7 and statement 6. And you'll see the way that I've annotated each step by the rules needed. So step 8, P comes from not C implies P and not C. Step 9, again, it's modus ponens, statements 8 and 1. P implies not F, statement 8 is P, so therefore not F. From not F, I can get not E, because statement 3 gives me not F implies not E, and 9 was not F. But finally, I've also can deduce E from statements 8 and 2, which is 8 gave me proof, and 2 gives me proof implies exists, so I've got exists. So what we think about here is we've got non-existence of God and existence of God. So we've both proved that God exists and God doesn't exist. So you could say to yourself, that explains why God vanishes in a puff of logic. We have proved not E and E. So what have we learnt? Well, actually, we haven't proved that God should disappear in a puff of logic at all. We just proved exactly that the set of premises that we gave, which was the set of formulae on a previous slide. So I'll just flick back to that. This set of formulae is logically inconsistent because we can deduce something and the opposite. We can deduce E and not E. So that means that not all the statements can be true. And for example, we happen to know that the Babel fish existing is not true because it's a work of fiction. So there's nothing wrong with this. This is just saying that the situation Douglas Adams outlined in the book is impossible if we accept the exact formalization we've given. And we have to be a bit clear about this. We haven't proved God doesn't exist. We haven't proved that there is a contradiction in the world. We've proved that there is a contradiction in the world described by Douglas Adams if we accept the exact formalization. So it'd be perfectly valid to come back and say, oh, here's another way we could formalize it, and perhaps that wouldn't lead to a contradiction. And then we could argue about the formalization. So you've got to be careful. When we don't always prove something in logic, we prove something dependent on the formalization we've got. But anyway, this is an argument I first heard in 1978, which is a long time ago. I was 13. Hitch Hiker Guide to the Galaxy. I highly recommend it if you don't happen to have come across it before. And if you do, well, you probably already know it. In fact, if you do know it, you certainly already know it. So, thank you.